Good morning, everybody. It's the day after the night before for me and for everybody who was involved in the elections yesterday. So, if you're in the UK, you know probably because it's been on the news for a while, there were three by-elections in the UK for Westminster. If you're watching in the USA, those are what you call special elections. So those were Selby and AInsty, Uxbridge and South Ruislip, and Somerton and Frome. Now, the Heritage Party stood in Selby and AInsty, and Guy Fawkes was our candidate, and he did a fantastic job of campaigning in the 4 weeks up to the election. And I'd just like to first of all thank everybody who supported Guy and us in the Heritage Party, who voted for us in Selby and AInsty, who came to the action days to help out, give out leaflets and so on, and who've given messages of support and encouragement to us, to me and to Guy Fawkes, who stood in the election. Now, the results were not what I'd hoped for. Obviously, if you've looked at the results that we've got, you can see what they are. Guy got 162 votes. Now, so this is kind of in line with what's happened in by-elections that we've stood in before over the last 3 years or so since we launched as a party publicly. But the takeaway from this, for me, as far as I can see, is that 90% plus of people are still voting for the uni-party. The uni-party is fake Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem and Green. They all support the same policies, and while they have small disagreements within a very narrow Overton window that they disagree with, and they have, personality clashes and so on. Obviously, this is just part of what happens in any institution, even if you're just a single institution. They basically have coalesced in terms of their policies. They all support net zero and climate alarmism. The Tories want to get rid of petrol and diesel cars by 2030. Labour in London are pushing this ULEZ, which means more charges for driving your car if it's what they call old. And old can be just 7 years old if it's a diesel, or 15 years old if it's a petrol car. Which means my car is old, because my car is from the last millennium, but it goes like a dream. But I can't drive in London now without paying £12.50 a day to drive my car, because it's deemed old and polluting, which is absolute nonsense. So you see, Tory Labour are just the same in terms of this nonsense of climate alarmism. The Lib Dems and Greens are on that boat as well. And what they want to do is get rid of our coal power, our gas power, and build wind turbines and solar panels everywhere, which is not going to provide any energy, and which is one of the three main drivers of inflation and the rising cost of living. The other one of the other two, is the insanity of lockdowns and then furlough, where the government paid for people to stay at home so they didn't go out and mix with other people. And they were all on board with that. If you think the Tories were bad, Labour wanted to lock down earlier and harder and longer. That's the only difference between the two. It was a disaster with the Tories, but the others would have been worse. So make no mistake, if there's another excuse where they can lock us down and get us into controlled 15-minute cities, they would all do that, because they all support that, because that's all part of Agenda 2030 that they support. And they all support the war in Ukraine, escalating war in Ukraine, and putting sanctions on Russia, which actually have backfired on all of the West and means we can't buy cheap Russian gas to keep industry going and to keep homes warm. They're running down our own energy supplies in the UK, but then they also say, well, we don't want to buy energy from Russia either. So where are you going to get it from? You're going to get it from the USA, which is charging top dollar for LNG They have to liquefy it, put it on boats, bring it across the Atlantic, and we unliquefy it and use it. And we pay much, much higher price for that than we would do buying it from Russia, or even using our own energy supplies, of which there is a plentiful supply under the ground, but the government doesn't want to use it because they're net zero idiots, basically. So there you go. They're all on board with these things, and they're all woke cultural Marxists. I mean, they pretend, to have arguments about, does a woman have a male reproductive organs, etc., etc. And you get some of the Tories saying, oh, no, that's nonsense. But they're all pushing for redefinition of marriage and gender recognition and all this kind of stuff, So 90% of people are still voting for these parties, though, because you've still got this fake dialectic set up. Labour is left-wing, the Tories are right-wing, so we're going to vote Tory to keep Labour out, or we're going to vote Labour to keep the Tory out. But they're both the same. And then some people say, oh, I don't like either of them. I'm going to vote Liberal Democrat, or I'm going to vote Green. But they're the same as well. You're not going to get any change of direction, any change of policy, any change of principles by voting for those four parties. So for me, it's, to be honest, Guy is fantastic and has been a great candidate, and I thank everyone for supporting us. But it's another frustrating night because we need to keep on banging the message home that you're not going to get any change unless you abandon this uni-party, which together is acting in lockstep to ruin our nation. So, I'm not going to be disheartened by that. It's frustrating, but I'm not disheartened. We will carry on and we will redouble our efforts. We will double down. We will stand in more places and we will put out more messages that you need to change how you vote in order to change the future of your nation and to turn us back onto the right path again. And the Heritage Party is the only viable party which is a real socially conservative party with good traditional principles, both in the social and cultural area, but also financially as well. We will be responsible with the national budgets. We will uphold traditional family values. We will uphold freedom and freedom of speech. And we will uphold the right to life of everybody, from the unborn child to the older person to everybody in between. So if you want that for the future of your nation, please join me. Redouble our efforts now, because we need to change things. It's no good 90% of people continuing to vote for these old parties and continuing to get frightened into the dialectic of voting someone to keep someone worse out when they're both as bad as each other. We need to change that. So join me, please. Come and join me today in the Heritage Party. It's £25 a year. That's just over £2 a month. That's half a cup of coffee a month. To join the Heritage Party, you can do that on heritageparty.org, and I need more candidates to stand everywhere in the country in the next general election, which looks like it's going to be in November 2024. I might be wrong, but if it is, then we've got a year to prepare, just over a year to prepare, and to get ready to challenge this uni-party and to get our country back on the right track. So thank you for all your support, and thank you for your continuing encouragement through thick and thin, and that is invaluable to me. And everybody is making a stand with us and for the Heritage Party, like Guy, Phoenix and Selby and AInsty yesterday. Thank you for your encouragement and your continuing support, and we'll carry on until we break this system and we get our country back on the right track to where it should be. Thanks for listening, everybody. God bless you all.